welcome back guys. Now we are going to go ahead and then create a scripted pipeline for the Java web app that we have already configured in GitHub. So let's quickly go through the prerequisites. So as you can see here, we need to have Java web app configured. So this is a Java web app that we have already configured in GitHub. So this is the project that we are going to create a CICD pipeline. And then we need to have Jenkins up and running. So that is our CICD tool. So this is my Jenkins, which is already up and running. And then we also need to have Tomcat up and running. So Tomcat is a web container. That is where we are going to deploy our Java-based web application. And then we also need to have our SonarQube up and running. So this is a SonarQube that we are going to integrate with Jenkins in order to identify code quality issues early in the software development lifecycle. And then we also need to have Nexus up and running. So this is our Nexus. This is where we are going to upload our binary file. And then we also need to have AquaTrivy scanner installed in Jenkins. So let's find out. So this is the Jenkins that I'm actually connected through iTerm. So let me quickly check if I have Trivy installed. So Trivy is one of the popular open source vulnerability scanner in order to identify vulnerabilities early in the software development lifecycle. So you can clearly see here Trivy got installed. And then we also need to have a Slack workspace configured. So this is a Slack workspace. So we already have created a channel here. So this is where we are going to send push notification from our Jenkins. And we also need to have some JUnit test added in the code. So let me take you guys back to the source code. So this is a Java project. So I have already added some, unit test. So I have added some hello world, a service, and then I also have added hello service test as well. So we also have some unit tests as well. Fantastic. And then we also need to make sure that all the plugins got installed. So let's find out. So we have to install the plugin called Pipeline Stage View plugin because we are going to implement scripted pipeline in order for, seeing all the stages in the Jenkins. You have to have this plugin installed. Go to manage Jenkins plugins, available plugins. So let's look for Pipeline Stage View. There you go. So this is the plugin that we have to install. So the plugin got installed. Fantastic. And then we also need to make sure other plugins are already installed. So as part of our previous lab exercise, we have already installed all these plugins, but let's quickly make sure. So I do have Sonar plugin installed. I also have deploy to container plugin installed in order to deploy the WAR file into Tomcat. I also have Nexus plugin installed in order to upload the artifact. And then we also have Slack notification plugin installed. Perfect. And then we also have installed Jacoco plugin as well. I know this plugin has some issue, but that's fine. So basically we have, all the prerequisites, taken care. So now let's go ahead and then start creating scripted pipeline in order to implement CI and CD. So let me take you guys back to the process flow diagram. So if you look at this diagram, so this is what we are trying to achieve, right? So we have to implement CI and then implement CD. So we are going to create a pipeline based on stages. So we are going to start with checkout stage, build stage, code quality stage like this. So let's start, developing pipeline by building stage by stage. So let's go ahead and then create a new item here. So I'm going to call this as my scripted pipeline job. Click on pipeline. Fantastic. Click on OK. Go to pipeline. But before that, how do you want to trigger this pipeline? So again, right, there are so many ways you can trigger your Jenkins pipeline, isn't it? So we talked about that in our previous lecture. So if you look at this diagram, you can trigger pipeline based on Polyscium, or you can also kickstart through webhooks, or you can also kickstart your Jenkins job from a Slack channel, or one Jenkins job also can trigger another Jenkins job as well. But I'm going to go with webhooks for the scripted pipeline that we are configuring. So go ahead and then click on this option. So now how are we going to create pipeline script? Not a problem. So we are going to leverage something called Groovy. So using the Groovy language, we are going to start writing pipeline script. But even if you're completely new to IT or you're completely new to programming, not a problem. I will actually walk you through how we can actually, start writing pipeline script for each and every stage. Okay. So you have a couple of options over here. So if you click on hello world, So that is actually a declarative pipeline syntax. So we will talk about that later. But if we are creating scripted pipeline, right? So you can start up with this, nothing wrong in it. But the problem with this is, you have a lot of code here, right? So you may not know what each and every line of code does here. So not a problem. So I always recommend to, create a pipeline script from the ground up, especially if you're a beginner, so that, you have a lot of confidence, in writing pipeline code. Okay. So as you all know that a scripted pipeline starts with the node block. So we saw that in the presentation, right? Let me take you guys back there. So if you see here, so this is the scripted pipeline code, right? It starts with the node block, and then you are going to have each and every stage defined. Let's start with the node block. Okay, so everything have to be in between that. So what would be the very first stage? Because our code is committed in GitHub. So the first stage is going to be a checkout. So now how are we going to start, writing code for checking out code from our GitHub? So this is where you're going to start using something called pipeline syntax. So pipeline syntax is nothing but it's kind of a utility available in Jenkins in order for you to generate the pipeline script for based on the activity that you are planning to do. You see here, right? So whenever you actually install any plugin, you can actually, select that from the drop down, and then you would be able to, generate pipeline script. Okay. And similarly, if you want to perform any task, you would be able to, use this, pipeline syntax generator in order to do that. Okay. So we are trying to check out the code. So I'm going to first select Git. So select the repo URL. So this is our repo URL, isn't it? So copy that, put that over here. And then the branch name is main. Fantastic. And then I have already added my path of GitHub over here. So there you go. So that's it, right? So now go ahead and then click on generate pipeline script. There you go. See here now, this has generated pipeline script. So all you have to do is, start pasting that code over here. So that's it, right? So now before I go too far, click on apply and save. Click on build now. I understand I'm actually kickstarting the build manually. I know we have configured to be triggered using webhooks. We will definitely test that, okay? There you go. So you all see here, right? So another great thing about pipeline is you have better visibility. So when you actually compare with a freestyle job, you don't have any clear visibility, right? For example, if you just pick up a freestyle job, you see here, right? You didn't know, how many stages were configured, in the freestyle job. The only thing that you would know is, how long this freestyle job took time to execute, but you would not even have that, stage-wise, stage breakdown. Okay. So this is where, the pipeline is much better. You have more visibility. You can actually break down, your task. You have clear understanding that, how long each and every stage is, taking time to execute. Okay. So the next stage is going to be build. So if you all remember, we have already configured Maven, right? So let me take you guys to tools and click on Maven installation. There you go. So we have already configured Maven. So this is what we are going to use for, building our Java web app. So I'm creating a variable called Maven home. So I'm going to start using that. So this is how you are going to refer your variable bin maven clean install, and we have to provide the path of our pom.xml file. So if I can take you guys back to my repository, you can see here, right? So this is the web app name. I have pom.xml file inside this folder. So pom.xml file is not in the root of the repository. So that's the reason why you have to provide path of your pom.xml file for Maven. So click on apply and save. Click on build now before we go too far. So it is always a good idea to build stage by stage. So build got success. It took about 15 seconds to complete the build. Fantastic. So now what is the next stage, right? So if you look at this diagram, the next stage is going to be unit test and coverage, right? So for coverage, we are going to leverage something called Jacoco. For unit test, we are using JUnit. So you can actually create one single stage in order to achieve both. So let's get started, right? So I'm going to first write stage here. I'm going to say unit test. and coverage. So we are going to use JUnit, and then if I can take you guys back to my repository here, if I can go to pom.xml file. So I have added a Maven Surefire plugin here. So using this plugin, you should be able to export your test results. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. So let's get back to our code. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write JUnit. So this should take care of, exporting the unit test. And then I'm also going to implement Jacoco as well. Perfect. Okay. So let's go ahead and then apply save and click on build now. Sorry, that's the proper syntax. Okay, fantastic. So now let me take you guys back to pipeline here, and you can clearly see that pipeline got executed successfully, and we are able to see our code coverage report here. Fantastic. And we can also see our JUnit test results here as well, and we can see here we have one unit test which is actually passed, isn't it? And you can also see that over here as well. See here. So we have written one unit test which has been passed. Fantastic. So yeah, so this is a piece of code using which you can export your JUnit test results, as well as creating that Jacoco report. So for this one, you can also use pipeline syntax for generating the code. If you go to pipeline syntax, if you just type Jacoco, there you see here, right? And when you click on generate pipeline script, it should be able to create that script for you. Fantastic. Okay, so moving on. So what is the next stage in our pipeline? So we have to perform static code analysis. After that, we have to perform SAS scanning. So let's start with the SonarQube scanning. So I'm going to write stage, let's say code scan or code analysis. And then we are going to leverage SonarQube, right? So this is our SonarQube. I have already integrated, SonarQube with Jenkins. So let's go back here, right? So how do you generate code for SonarQube? So you can also go back to pipeline syntax and then look for with SonarQube. There you go. And click on generate pipeline script. There you go. See, you can start leveraging this piece of code. And then you would type SonarQube here. So I will tell you where this is actually coming from. You can go back to manage Jenkins system, and then you can see clearly, right? So this is how we have registered our SonarQube information. So this is the variable name. So you'll have to use that, okay? And then we are going to use Maven for performing the build. So you can copy and paste the code and then just change into sonar:sonar. So let's go ahead and then apply and save. Click on build now. Wow. So SonarQube has been integrated in the pipeline job. So let me guys take you back to SonarQube here. There you go. Click on refresh. Okay. So you can see here, right? So SonarQube has been integrated. So we were able to automate static code analysis using our Jenkins pipeline job. Fantastic. So moving on. So what is the next stage? The next stage is going to be SAS scanning. So I'm going to say SAS scanning. So we are going to start leveraging, Aqua Trevi scanner. So how do you generate the code for that? I have not installed, any Aqua Trevi scanner, but I have directly installed the software. So you should be able to perform the scan. So that is straightforward. So I'm going to say Trevi, and then FS stands for file system, and then you just have to provide the web app folder name. So this should take care of performing vulnerability scanning of our source code. So click on apply and save. Click on build now. All right, so as you can see here, Trivy started scanning our source code. There you go. Fantastic. So you can clearly see this is our scan report, right? Fantastic. So we were able to automate security scanning using Trivy, and that took about 6 seconds. Fantastic. So what is the next stage? So the next stage is, we have to upload our WAR file into Nexus. So let me start creating pipeline script for that. Go back to pipeline. Let's add a new stage called binary upload. And how are we going to generate code for this? Click on pipeline syntax. Look for Nexus. And our Nexus version is 3. It is asking for the Nexus URL. So that is our Nexus URL. Don't put anything after the port number. We don't have to mention the protocol because it is already mentioned here. Fantastic. And I have already added the Nexus credentials, admin credentials. Okay. So we just have to, fill in this information. So how do you get the group ID, version, all the repository artifact information? So let's go back to our code and go back to pom.xml file. So there you go. So if you look at line number 4, we got the group ID. So let's fill that in, and then version, that also you can take it from here. So this is the version, and then it is asking for the repository. So we are going to upload our WAR file into this repository, Maven snapshots. So let's put that in there and click on add. And what is the artifact ID? That also you can get it from here. And type is a WAR file and file. So you have to provide the path of your WAR file in your Jenkins workspace. So that is going to be, so this is the path. And how do I know? I'll quickly show you. If you can go back to your Jenkins, go back to the Jenkins installation directory and go to workspace. And this is the pipeline that we are configuring, right? So go there and my web app and target, and that's a WAR file, right? So that's the path of our WAR file exists in the workspace. So that is actually nothing but this is the path. Fantastic. So click on generate pipeline script. So there you go. So that is the code for uploading our WAR file into Nexus. So go here and then paste it. Fantastic. So click on apply and save. Click on build now. So let's quickly check the build output. So there you go. The artifact have been uploaded into Nexus successfully. Let's also go to Nexus to verify that. Go to browse. Click on Maven snapshots. There you go. So we can clearly see here that our artifact have been uploaded. So this is a WAR file which was built using Jenkins, and then this has been uploaded. Fantastic. So now let's get back into our pipeline. Go to configure. So what is the next stage? So the next stage is going to be deploying into our web container. I'm going to say upload deploy to dev. So we are going to upload into Tomcat. Let's go to pipeline syntax. Look for that plugin deploy. There you go. Our WAR file is going to be, we already know what that is. This is kind of a shortcut. And then add container. We are going to use Tomcat 9. Tomcat URL. So this is the Tomcat URL. So copy that. And then Tomcat credential have been already added in Jenkins. Fantastic. So that's it, right? So click on generate pipeline script. There you go. Okay. So now let's quickly verify this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to trigger the pipeline manually. Let's quickly, make some code changes, and then webhook should be able to trigger the pipeline. Okay. So click on apply and save. Let's make sure that our webhook has been configured successfully. So let's go back to GitHub, repository settings, click on webhooks. So this is a Jenkins URL, fantastic. Click on update. So let's make sure that our URL is configured correctly. Click on the three dots. Click on redeliver. Yes. There you go. So we got response 200. So that means that our webhook have been configured fine. So let's go back to our Jenkins, where we have already downloaded our source code. So this is the source code. Let's go ahead and then make some code changes. So let's make some code changes. We are implementing CICD using Jenkins Scripted Pipeline. Okay. So let me go ahead and then add and then perform git commit. So this will commit into local repo first. I'm going to say triggering pipeline using hooks and then git push. Fantastic. So now let's go back to pipeline. Let's make sure the pipeline got triggered instantly. There you go. And we can clearly see here pipeline got triggered by our push. Okay, fantastic. So the code has been deployed into Tomcat. So we can also verify that as well. Let's go back to Tomcat. Let's check the build output. Wow. So we are able to verify our code changes. They are working fine. So what is the next stage? So right after we deploy into Tomcat, we have to inform the dev team. So we are going to use Slack for sending that notification. So let's go back to our pipeline. Configure pipeline. So the next stage is going to be Slack notify. So go back to pipeline syntax. Let's select Slack. And the channel name is over here. And I want to say, hey, dev team, deployment is done. Please start smoke testing. Click on generate pipeline script. So this should take care of, sending the dev team notification. So if you wanted to send message to more than one channel, you can just mention by comma separated here and then mention the channel name. So click on apply and save. Click on build now. So sending Slack message is final stages of our CA implementation, and then we will move forward to CD. Fantastic. So let me go back to my Slack. There you go. Did you all hear that sound? This confirms that deployment is done. So CI build is done. So now we have to move forward to CD. But if you just think about the workflow, once the CI is done, you inform to dev team, they verify their code changes. So now they want to move the code into next environment, right? So how are you going to do that? So this is where we are going to create some kind of a workflow. So if you see here, we are going to take some kind of approval from dev manager for deploying into QA environment. And then we are going to go ahead and then deploy the code into QA environment. And then we are going to notify the QA team saying that QA deployment is done, and then they can start their functional testing. They may take a couple of days, depending on the requirements or depending on the volume of testing. And then after that, let's say if they are finding any defects, they can assign the defects back to development team. But let's say there are no defects, then you can move the code into next environment. So for that, you are going to take some approval from some key stakeholders. Once they approve, you're going to deploy into production environment, and then finally you're going to inform the product owners and then everyone, right, saying that the deployment to production is complete. So that is the CD part of it. So let's try to see how we can implement using scripted pipeline. So go back to pipeline. So you can also add comments in the pipeline. So you can say, if you wanted to provide single line command, you can say something like this: CI pipeline ends here. Or if you want to add multi-line commands, you can also add like this. Okay, so I'm going to add some comments here. I'm going to say CD pipeline starts here. Okay, so now let's move forward to CD. So I'm going to take an approval from, let's say, dev manager, because code has been verified in dev environment. Now they are giving a thumbs up for moving the code into next environment. So now let's say dev approval or dev approve. So unfortunately for this particular stage, you cannot use snippet generator to generate the code. So we'll have to write it by ourselves, or you can also use ChatGPT, or you can also use Google search as well. But I already have a code. So this is a piece of code, right? So let's say you wanted to give 7 days for dev manager to approve, or if you wanted to give just 2 days. So if you wanted to give a couple of days, you can just modify that depending on how many number of days you want to give. Or let's say you want to give few hours, you can also change this into hours. Okay, and then you can include whoever you wanted to be included in the approval workflow. So you can also mention comma separated, and then mention dev manager email address, right? So you can also specify like that. Okay, so that's the dev approval, and then let's move forward to deploy. So I'm going to say stage. So after dev approve, we are going to deploy into QA environment. So we are going to use the same Tomcat for all the environments. So usually, in the real world scenario, you're going to have Tomcat Dev, Tomcat QA, Tomcat Prod, isn't it? But just to simplify our demo, I'm going to use one Tomcat instance for deploying, our code. So that's the reason why I'm not going to change the URL. It's the same URL, okay? So this should take care of, deploying the code into QA environment. And then right after that, we have to send, a notification. I'm going to say QA notify. And let's also add our QA team as well. So I have separate channel for QA team. So let's also notify, obviously, the QA team. So I'm going to say, hey, QA team, QA deployment is done. Please start functional testing. So now let's go ahead and then click on apply and save. So now let's see how we can trigger this pipeline. So again, pipeline is configured to be triggered through webhooks. But before that, let's just make sure we have everything is configured correctly here. Okay, dev approve. And then once they give approve, you're going to deploy into QA. And then after that, you're going to notify them. Fantastic. Okay. So now let's quickly make some code changes. I'm going to go back to the code. Let me say we are going to deploy into QA environment. Okay, so git add, git commit, deploying changes into QA environment, and then git push. So as soon as you commit the code, since we have already configured webhook, this is going to go ahead and then, deploy the code, but it's going to start from dev. So now let's try to, see this flow. So we are going to use only 3 environment, dev, QA, and production, just to simplify the demo. But if you look at the end-to-end CICD process flow diagram, so we have 4 environments, right? And we'll talk about quality gate, later in the upcoming lectures. So now if you see here, I got a notification over here saying that dev deployment is done. Let's find out. So you see here, so I can, go and verify if my code changes are working fine. There you go. So my code changes are working fine. So now, what do you think the dev manager can do? He can go ahead and then give an approval, right? So if you look at the pipeline code, I have added, you can see here, I have added, admin and then dev manager. So I logged in as administrator, but let's say, you see here, right? I logged in as administrator, correct? So for example, let me see if I can sign out and then log back again. So I'm logging back as admin. I go to pipeline. All I have to do is, move the mouse over. There you see here. Similarly, dev manager also can, log back in, and then, he can say proceed or abort depending on, whatever, the dev team is saying, right? But in our case, we are able to see our code changes. I'm going to go ahead and then click on proceed. So there you go. You all heard the sound. So now as you can see here, the QA team also got the notification as well. Fantastic. So now the QA team is going to go ahead and then, perform the code changes. Again, they may take a couple of days or weeks or whatever it is, depending on, the volume of the testing. And then, they may find bugs in the code, and then they can assign back to development team, right? They can assign back to the development team, and then development team, would be making the code changes, and then again they are going to commit the code. So again the process is going to start from the beginning, right? But let's just assume everything is going good, so we should be able to move forward, right? So now let's go ahead and then finish our implementing the scripted pipeline. So I'm going to move forward. Okay, we were able to verify our code changes in the QA environment. So the next change is going to be production, right? So for that, we have to take an approval from QA manager, isn't it? So what I'm going to do, just to save time, I'm going to simply copy and paste the code. And then I'm going to say QA approve. I'm going to say taking approval from QA manager for prod deployment. And then I'm going to say, do you approve prod deployment? Okay, so we can also give some time for the QA team. Let's say we are giving like 2 weeks. So one thing to note here is, let's say if they have not responded in 2 weeks, so this will be auto abort. Okay, so this is not going to auto approve. This will be auto abort. So remember that. So I'm going to include QA manager email address over here. And then right after the deployment is done, right after the approval is done, we are going to go ahead and then deploy the code changes into production. So I'm going to say prod deploy, and then we are also going to send notification, and then I'm going to say final notification. And here you can include the product owner's team, and you can say end customers. Click on apply and save. So now let's actually test this entire flow. So let's go ahead and then make some code changes. To deploy into prod environment using Jenkins Scripted Pipeline. Okay. So git add, git commit. I'm going to say deploying into prod, and then git push. So as soon as you commit the code, the pipeline should trigger. So you all heard the sound. So the code is deployed into dev environment first, and we can verify that by going into dev environment. You see here, so we are able to see our code changes, and then the dev manager can give an approval for deploying into QA environment, right? So now the code is also deployed into QA environment. So now the QA team, can take over. So they can, verify all the code changes are working fine. So they may take a week or two depending on, the requirements. And then let's assume that, they were also able to verify the code changes. So I don't see anything in the approval. Let's see what's going on. Approval got failed. Let's see. Oh, there's nothing called weeks. Okay, that's interesting. Let me just make it to 7 days. Okay. Looks like our code changes are deployed into dev. Fantastic. So let's give an approval for deploying into next environment, which is nothing but QA. So code also deployed into QA environment. Since we are deploying into the same environment, I'm going to just refresh there. Fantastic. So code also deployed, and then we also notified the QA team as well, saying that the deployment is done. So they can go ahead and then verify their functional changes. And then let's say the QA manager also given approval for production deployment. So the QA manager can come here and then they can give proceed. So this will go ahead and then deploy the code changes into production environment. And then you can also see the final notification. So we also send the final notification to the product owners. And you can see here, right? So now the product owner also can, go and do some basic testing in production before they can actually inform the end customers, right? So yeah, so this is how, guys, this is how you can actually implement a scripted pipeline for the Java web app that we have configured in GitHub. So now if I can take you guys back to the end-to-end CICD process flow diagram. So if you see this diagram, we were able to pretty much integrate with each and every tool that has been mentioned. I know we have not implemented quality gate, or we have not integrated with the regression test. Regression test integration is out of scope for this training, but we will be definitely implementing quality gate in the upcoming videos. I hope this video was really useful. I'm really looking forward to see you all in the